Okay, everybody, let's take a look at today's lesson. So we're talking about polynomials, and so an awful lot of this we already know. Polynomial is a fancy word. It just means poly means many in Latin, and nomials like numbers. We're talking about terms, okay? So here's a polynomial, 2x squared minus 3x plus 5. We commonly will call that a trinomial because it's got 1, 2, 3 terms, okay? This example's a binomial, but it's also it's a polynomial called a binomial because it's got 2 terms. This example is a polynomial, but it only has 1 term, okay? This example, 5x plus 3x squared minus 2x cubed plus 5, has 4 terms. So we don't call it a quadnomial because there's a certain point we say, well, enough is enough. So we just call it a polynomial. So anything bigger than 3 terms, we just call it a polynomial, okay? Now, what defines a polynomial? So, polynomial only has whole number exponents. So, whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, ... Those are whole numbers, no decimals, no fractions, no negative numbers. So, all of these have whole number exponents. All of these have whole number exponents. Whole number exponents, even that's next to the 0, okay? So then we talked about what is standard form. Standard form means in descending order. So I went back to this one. I said, wait a minute, this one needs to be rewritten. This one's not in standard form because the biggest exponent has to be written first. So I have to write the negative 2x cubed first, then the next biggest exponent plus 3x squared, then the 5x plus 5. That's in standard form, okay? Then we talked about the degree and the leading coefficient. So I'm going to turn the page. And we talked about another example. So we call it p of x instead of f of x. P of x because it's a polynomial. And I made another one up. But then this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms, we're going to call it a polynomial. But it's out of order. So let's first rewrite it. So we put the biggest exponent first, 3x to the 5th. Then the next biggest exponent, so descending order. Then the next biggest exponent, then the next, and the next. So we went the x to the 5th, 4, 2, x to the 1, and x to the 0, okay? Now, once it's written in standard form, then we talk about a thing called a leading coefficient. Well, the leading coefficient is the number in the front. Well, I've rewritten it. The 3. This 3 is in the front. That's called the leading coefficient. We'll talk more about that as the course goes on. That's an important thing. The degree is the biggest exponent. The degree is the biggest exponent. So in this case, it's got a degree of 5. And then this is a constant. Constant is a number without a variable. It stays constant. It's negative 2. Does not have a variable. So a number by itself, no exponent, no variable, just plain old negative 2 is called a constant. Okay. So then we talked about the fact that we can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and you've done a lot of this. You've multiplied binomial times binomial. We just FOILed it. That times that, x squared, that times that, 4x, plus 3x plus 12, okay? And we added the middle term. So you've done this. We're just multiplying and adding polynomials. Here's one that's a little bit different, but again, I only add the like terms. So I added these two. I got an 8x cubed, not to the 6th power, 8x cubed. And then I added these 2 here. I got a negative 4x squared. Then I add the x's and I got a negative 6. Okay? So add like terms only. And then we talked about subtracting, or adding, adding. If they're written like this, trinomial plus a trinomial, we are adding trinomials. You don't need the parentheses. You don't need them at all. But again, they put them there so you can say you got a trinomial plus another trinomial. So you add them. 4x squared minus 1x minus 8, okay? And that's all you do because all of these terms are different terms. Then we talked about subtracting. Subtraction is a little bit tough. If you subtract, you got to be careful because of the parentheses. You're subtracting a trinomial from a trinomial, but you got to be careful because you're going to subtract a negative. So what I do is I make sure that I know that's a minus, which is like a plus, a minus, a plus. So I just changed all the signs. And I made it a negative x squared, a minus, a plus, a minus, a plus. And then I added 2x squared plus 9x minus 4. Okay, and then we had a worksheet that went along with that, and I think it was lesson 1.1. Okay, so if you have any questions, come see me, but that's the lesson for the day.